Hey guys, welcome to What the Fudge. Um, I'm going to be going over logic for philosophy today. Basically, you have this here where there's writing. Um, it's important to know that when there's writing for logic for philosophy, it doesn't always mean the same thing. It doesn't always read like just how normal writing for English is. There's different keywords here that mean something different than if you were to read just normal writing in English. So that means when you have logic for philosophy, you have to know that there's keywords that make things mean different things. And that only applies within logic for philosophy. So you have to know what the writing you're reading is for. Is it for logic for philosophy, or is it just normal writing for English? Because it will mean different things. Like for instance, when you have math, you have positive, like plus, negative, multiplication, and division. But the subtraction, well, you know, if you're in math, it means subtraction, but there's also a lot of just lines in the world that you can look at. Hyphens, you can use just a horizontal line. It matters where you're using the variable for. That will change what it actually means, right? So, and the same thing for multiplication. You know, you have an x for multiplying, but say you have sports teams facing each other. Sometimes they put an X to mean that, and then there's other places X marks the spot. That doesn't mean that you're multiplying there. So that's all. So it's just you have to know where you're using the keywords, the key instructions for. And within logic or philosophy, it means something different than if you were just going to read it and have just normal writing for English. That's just what you have to know. Okay, and I'll say all the occurrences in another video, all the special keywords, and then there's a few here, but I'm not gonna talk about that right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and you're gonna translate it to different variables, so we can write it all in variable form, right? So we can write it all as variables, and then I'm gonna explain, how it makes sense, that this statement is actually correct. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to make the first variable. So a variable is basically any independent action, pretty well. Any independent thing. So the first variable, we're going to give it an f. And you can give any letter you want, anything you want you can give. I'm just giving it an f because I'm giving an f for Freddie has to take people's souls. Okay, so that's the first action, right? Okay, so that's the first one that's going on. So the second action, I'm going to give an S, and that's going to be I am very good at stopping Freddy. Okay, that's the next action. I am very good at stopping Freddy. The next one last one is I like to eat food. Okay, you can see that's the last one. I'll give that an I, because I already have F for food for Freddy, so it'd be confusing. I like to, or if I put F2, there's just no need to do that. I'm just gonna give an I. I like to eat food. Or I could give an E for eat. It's actually even better. I'm gonna give an E. And you can give whatever you want. E. Okay, so these are your variables. So you can see there's no more actions occurring. So if I was gonna write these out of what's actually happening, I'm gonna write out these statements as variables. So F, Freddy has to take people's souls. Next one, I'm very good at stopping if I like to eat food. This if actually makes the sentence go as if I like to eat food, then I am very good at stopping Freddy. This is actually a case where whether you read it like English or you read it as logic philosophy, it means the same thing. So we're gonna go S. I am very good at stopping Freddy if I like to eat food. So basically this means if I like to eat food, then I'm very good at stopping Freddy. Okay, so that's what that means, right? And the last one is I like to eat food. So this is literally just E. Okay, so basically when you're writing this out, each statement, right, you could prove later sometimes in logic philosophy, someone will give a statement and it'll be wrong when they try to be right, and you have to know that's occurring. Sometimes, let's say, your professor might give you a statement and they want you to prove if it's right or wrong, right? And there's a way to do that. I'm not going to show that in this video, but basically, in this case, what you do is when you write this out, you assume everything is correct to start out, okay? So you assume F is happening, E to S is happening, and E is happening, okay? And so when we write out F, E to S, and E, you're saying F, this is occurring. Each line is occurring. This is true. You're saying this is true, and that this is true. So when you just have, even it looks odd, just a variable by itself, but what it means is Freddie has to take people's souls, and that this is true. E means I like to eat food, and that's also true right now. And E to S, that statement is also true. Okay? The last one, therefore, that's a therefore, right? I am very good at stopping Freddie. S. Okay? So you have to look, and now you say, okay, from this information, is this actually happening? Okay? There's this thing called whether something's valid or not. I'm not going to look at if this is valid. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to look at if this even makes any sense. Okay, so what we did, we took this, it's writing for logic, which means that different keywords mean different things. Not in this case. In this case, the if this statement reads, if you read in English or not, it's the exact same as if in logic. But there's some times where you'll have a word like if, or you'll have or, and it doesn't mean the same thing as in English. Okay? So then you have to know that this writing is for logic philosophy, and then you can do things. Okay? Because if you're, but this example, I'll say it's planned. It reads the same as English. Okay, so there we go. So we made the variables from here. Each action statement is its own variable, and then now we've taken the variables, and now we've actually written this logic, like in English. This is written in English. This writing into of logic philosophy into logic philosophy just as variables. Okay, so now it's variables, logic philosophy. And now we're going to see if it's true. Conclusions S. Is that possible? Well, if we said E is true, if E is true, then that means that E goes to S. That means that S is true. Because we've said that each of these are true. I'm not trying to solve if this is valid or invalid, which is something you can do. I'm just saying, does this even make any sense? Okay. And since E is true, and E to S is true, that means that S exists within these rules. So S is true. So this conclusion makes sense. And the F is actually a red herring. It doesn't actually do anything. Okay? So that's it. That's literally just how, when you have writing logic philosophy, you make how you make variables from the statements, and then you just write it out. Really basic. All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming.